9 o'clock. Welcome to the JSCB meeting for today, Thursday, June 27. Do we have any addition or correction to the minutes? No? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carried. Report from Secretary. Yep.
Yes, good morning. So first, I'd like to welcome Greg Lowe to the JSCB meeting, the city's Chief Policy Officer as the mayor's designee. And second, I have no new correspondence to report, but I did send a confidential email to the board yesterday. I want to make sure you all have a chance to read it, and we can follow up on it as needed.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, and that completes my report.
Thank you very much. Report from the program manager.
Morning.
Good morning.
So, go through a couple items here for you this morning. The report, you have two reports in front of you. The second report is from EOC. Tim Penix will be presenting on the training program update. So I'm going to go through the first one, which is our construction update for the JSCB. In the upper right-hand corner under procurement, not a tremendous amount to report there, with the exception that we did receive bids on May 30th for Fowler site. We received 2 bids for that, and the bid results are under review at the moment. Under project financing, the ban for Fowler site has moved forward. We've advanced that. The next step down below there is anticipate approval process for the T2B borrowing. So there's a two-step component to that. One is the approval of a revised financial plan, which will be coming to JSCB and Syracuse City School Board in August for the review and approval of the revised plan. Beyond that, we will have the approval for the financing, which will follow after that, more towards the fall, moving towards borrowing in the first quarter of 20. So 2 separate steps there. Evaluation of the building budgets. So just to speak to this for a moment, what we're doing is we're really looking at our cost to date as we start to move towards completing some of the projects. We're evaluating that cost to date and evaluating looking at savings that we've had, an actual cost for the cost of issuance for the bonds and the capitalized interest, and we're evaluating all of those components to see where we stand on each building and then how we can potentially reallocate that. At the moment, we're not bringing forth any building budget modifications. That may come after the process of this evaluation during the month of July. We may change a few building budgets, but we haven't confirmed that yet. So does that make sense? Okay. On the training program, as I mentioned, we did complete the 3rd round of that, and Tim's going to speak to some of the metrics associated with that program and the successes that he's had there. We're now turning our attention slightly different to talking about potentially having some business administration training classes. The work that we've done today has been predominantly workforce training, and we're looking at, we've seen a need and kind of evaluated that need a little bit, working with Lamont and with EOC and with some of the other folks in our group to see where the need is. And there's some need for business administration trainings. And these would not be necessarily a course, an extended course, but maybe an evening or a 4-hour course where we would help them with things like insurances, wages, contracts, things like that, skills that would help the businesses. So we don't have that ironed out yet. It's more to come on that, but that's what we're looking at the moment. So any questions on that? Okay. Underneath the design and approval, our single and sole building that we're still waiting and seeking approval on is for Henniger, and where that stands now is we've really reconciled everything with SED, with the exception of a variance that we're obtaining for the firewall. And this is not atypical. It's something that's typically a bit subjective interpretation on how we build and construct the firewall that separates the new addition from the existing building. And so we're waiting for New York State's, not SED's, but the New York State evaluation of that application for variance on that. Once we have that, we'll have approval for that and move forward with Henniger will be the next one that we put out to bid, and the hope for that is the last quarter of this year of 19. Beyond that, under construction update at Fraser, we're very close to having that completed. I think we're reconciled with respect to the construction portion of it in terms of dollars and cents. We have a couple of things that we're chasing to complete in terms of the IT systems, getting those dialed in terms of the camera system and some of the other technology systems over there, and a couple of site work corrective actions that we're waiting to have completed on. So Blodgett moving forward, I don't know if you've been by there, but we've got some new windows in. It makes a pretty significant difference in the appearance of the building. And if you haven't been by, there's about 20 lifts over there doing the brick masonry restoration. It's pretty impressive on all three sides. We've got work happening, so some changes there. Grant is moving forward. We were about 50% complete with the stone replacement on the outside of the building. The exterior facade of the building are about 50% there. Again, pretty interesting how that has come back together and how it's looking. You can start to see the finished product. Huntington, moving forward with that, kind of gearing up. We got the new windows have started. We're on the cusp of, with school getting out here, to go full steam at Huntington. A lot of work there to accomplish this summer, a lot of demo work and put back work to do. Ed Smith, moving along as well. Windows are in, and we're working now. Our focus is predominantly now on interior finishes and completing that. It's noted over in our constraints or critical issues section that's still on my watch list, or on our watch list collectively. Their substantial completion date contractually was the end of July. I don't see them hitting that. We'd always planned on them being done by the end of July, so that we had the month of August to kind of bring the building up and do what we need to do. So we had a little bit there to work with. We're now going to end up utilizing that for construction. He's going to work right through August. Is committed to being there. The contractor I'm speaking to is committed to being complete and has given us several assurances. We're meeting with him on a regular basis. Still a bit cautiously optimistic about where that's going to go with him, but he's putting full steam ahead, and that's what we're counting on. So,
Go ahead.
So when you said through August, do you actually mean till the end of August? So
he's gonna work right through August, not in the entire building pad. I mean, we're trying to pull him out and reduce the footprint as he's advancing to get through it, but he's gonna need the month of August to get there.
So will there be parts of the building that he's working on that teachers would still be able to?
That's not our anticipation at this point, no. At this point, the goal is to get done. Obviously, there'll be a punch list. Obviously, there'll be, things that will need to be completed. But no, the idea is to turn over the building.
So teachers could move in before.
That's the plan. We are planning on that at the moment, yes. Yep.
I was there yesterday, and
He has a lot of work to do.
yeah.
He has a lot of work to do, so. Okay. Under Bellevue, again, moving well along. That's going to be, we're gonna go right on that one. We're full steam on that one at the moment. It's in different shape than Ed Smith, if you've been to both. Our focus at Bellevue at the moment is the lower level, and the focus is the mechanical systems at the moment. And we've been working some overtime to try and accomplish the mechanical systems there. So they've been accelerating that with the use of some overtime to get done. So, but I feel good about that one. The contractor feels good about that one. We may have a few loose ends here and there, which we always do, but it's moving forward well over there. And if you haven't seen it, it's pretty impressive. The site work is now starting to come together, and it's starting to look like something. So,
Can Ed Smith work overtime?
yes, and
Are they working overtime?
we need more. So the answer, Pat, is they have, but we need more. So, and they've heard that message. And we're going to continue to reiterate that message and meet with them on a regular basis. So,
How will that affect the budget if that's the case, though? Is that
Budget-
contingency factored in?
Yes.
If they're working overtime?
well, the overtime at this point would be for him to meet his contractual obligations. It's not a case, Calvin, where there's entitlement to overtime because of something that we did. So that's, and to answer, we have any changes that we do have over there, or potential changes that we do have over there, we've captured in terms of budget.
Okay.
But no, it's not a case of he wants additional compensation to work overtime. That's not the position we're in. This is more of one he needs to they need to step up and continue their efforts and focus the efforts. So, Fowler Roof, just to touch on that one we've been dodging raindrops since we started. It's been a challenge. Contractor feels confident though that he can still make his schedule, his projected schedule, through the use of just amplifying his manpower over there. So we're happy to see the sun out, and that's been far and few between. Under Tranche 200 Corcoran and Nottingham, again, both of those, at Nottingham we've started some work, and at Corcoran we're prepped and getting ready to launch at both of those for our summer efforts at both of those buildings. So, but again, those are continuous. Those are over the course of a few summers. Those are not a start this spring and be done this fall. I mean, it's all phased construction on both of those. So, under critical constraints and issues, as I mentioned, the revised financial plan will be coming to you in August for the approval there of that. Fowler site work, we're have a meeting pending with SED just to dial down a few things with respect to the MCA for that. So that's a work in progress at the moment. Fowler Roof, we spoke to Ed Smith and Grant. I think we spoke to both in terms of their current progress. Change conditions, this is still on here, but this is probably a perpetual thing that we just continue to deal with. You know, we're digging into some older buildings, and they always have surprises for us. So, but we're working through those. Nothing there to focus on at the moment. Bellevue we spoke to, and utility coordination continues. Comprehensive plan budgets, as I mentioned, we're looking at the job cost to date and then evaluating how we move forward. The last one I had on here, which is new this month, is just the manpower. At the cusp here of school getting out, all the market's been busy, and the halls, we've been talking to the union halls and talking to the labor pools, and there's definitely a lot of work out there, and it's going to be interesting this summer in terms of the manpower component. So, but the good news is that a lot of ours have already been going, so we've got folks in place.
So that means there's now extra people to work at Smith?
That there's extra people?
That there's not.
There's the manpower.
Manpower is limited.
Yeah, the manpower is limited. There's no question. So, as I said, though, we've been working at Ed Smith. So, I mean, some of the folks that are in place there are going to continue to be in place there. But would it surprise me to hear somebody say, I can't get anybody? No, it never surprises me to hear that. But, I've kind of, in conversations with the unions, there's definitely some issues there.
So second shift is probably not going to happen?
What we see frequently is a 10-hour shift, you know what I mean? And you get more out of that than you will trying to work the same. You can't work the same folks 2 shifts. Obviously, the production goes way down. But we have some provisions in the PLA that allow us to do some 10-hour shifts that helps us mitigate the premium that would be paid for that. So, okay, I think that's what I had. Any questions? With that said, I'll bring Tim up and let him speak to the ELC component, unless there's questions. Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm my 4th cup of coffee, so I may talk fast today. I believe that you all have the report that we've submitted with Turner that just kind of sums up, both the most recent training program as well as what we've done thus far. I'll go over just briefly the most recent training program. Was this some metrics of 24 students were enrolled out of the 24, 10 were actually completed with the NCCR training. And asking you just to look at some of the things that we just observed as biggest challenges, which is probably not news to anyone working with people, getting them trained and employed, with just hurdles. The commitment with no steady income is very difficult for someone to commit for a long-term program. And again, when we say long-term, we're talking 5 weeks, but again, there needs to be some kind of support there. Child care. We know that is an issue that we have to really be looking at as a community. Transportation. I mean, I don't really even need to go over these, but I just wanted to echo when we talk about individuals completing and trying to obtain better opportunities, there are these hurdles that they have to overcome that we just don't have the mechanisms yet to address. But also, on the other side, there have been some positive reasons for some of the attrition. Some have gained employment. Some have opted to leave the program early because they're able to gain employment in other areas, healthcare, as well as in some cases taking OSHA 10 and obtaining in construction because they may have already had some experience. So I give you the bad with the good, that there are opportunities and people are leaving. So out of that 24, we were able to complete 10 that graduated. Then looking at the overall program as a whole, one of the things with the EOC, we're running a number of other different programs related to healthcare, also another construction program, some advanced manufacturing, a number of things that when individuals come and they find, like many people when they go to educational setting, hey, I think I may want to try this. We've seen that occur where individuals have completed NCR and gone on to other training programs and vice versa. So when you look at our total numbers, we've basically enrolled 72 students. We've had 38 total graduate. At this point in time, we have 19 that are employed of those 38, but those 10 just recently completed in May. So as far as completion numbers, percentage-wise, we're looking good, and we're still too early to see where we will be as far as employment goes for the NCCR, but it's looking really good with 19 of the 38 having been employed or employed, and still 10 looking for employment that just completed. And with the construction season just really getting, well, actually it's been underway, but getting underway, I anticipate that they should find employment. And you can look at the union summary of that, how we placed in the union thus far. And again, the success stories kind of echo some of the things I just summarized. I spoke a little fast. Any questions at all?
Yeah, a couple of things. It's always challenging, but good work, right? We know that obviously the things that sometimes are most challenging you talked about is like the child care and like transportation. Mm-hmm. Have you thought about perhaps maybe looking at, for instance, like the AEI support in trying to maybe supplement some of those things that are challenging to get in the way of, because obviously that's a big factor.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We did when the first RFP was available, and being a state entity, we can't submit for the AEI.
Yeah.
So we just submit something. In hindsight, I would have had someone else do it under their as the lead, because it actually was a very creative proposal. It was really working with Lyft and giving people Lyft credits.
Yep.
So it's based on the individual getting around. So someone else is going to submit that for this next round of the RFP for the AEI. But we did actually try to look for AEI at one point.
Yeah, maybe we should circle back and have a conversation with you through the CCC. That's a consortium with Huntington, Southwest, Spanish Action League, and find out how we can be, because we're tied into that, to be ways to support you, because I think that's really critical, that workforce movement. So we'll have a...
Okay. I'll send you the grant, and you're going to just put your name on it. That's good. All right,
Any other questions or feedback? Comments? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Going back, financial report.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you, Suzanne.
This morning, we're going to go through the April financial statements. So there were several major financial transactions this month that I would like to highlight for you. First of all, we closed on the Tranche 2A borrowing. So this is going to provide funding for Corcoran, Nottingham, Bellevue, Blodgett, and Ed Smith. We closed on April 11th with $72 million, as well as $3.5 million of capitalized interest. This borrowing also partially paid off the short-term bond anticipation note for $3.8 million. We paid vendor payments for $4.3 million and recognized the federal subsidy flow through for $360,000 and had a little bit of interest earnings of about $186,000 this month. So beginning on page 5, we have the statement of net position. At the end of April, the fund has $167 million in cash and capital assets of $162 million, which is primarily the assets from Phase 1. The liabilities at the end of April total $300 million. This is for both Phase 1 and Phase 2 bond anticipation notes. A significant increase was incurred this month based on the recent borrowing for $72 million. So at the end of the month, we have an unaudited net position of $29.4 million. If you'll turn to page 6, this is our statement of sources and expenditures. For Phase 1 year-to-date, we have had the federal subsidy, again for this month, was $359,000, for a total year-to-date of $717,000. Year-to-date expenditures reflect all the payments that have been made through the end of April, as well as the debt service payment that we made last November. Phase 2 year-to-date sources, we have seen the increase of $186,000 for interest earnings and $1.4 million year-to-date. Year-to-date expenditures total $42.8 million, and this is an increase of about $6 million over last month. Any questions so far? On page 7 for cash flow, this report shows both the sources and disbursements on a cash basis. These are actuals through April with a projection for the months of May and June. At this rate, we're projecting to have $139.9 million at the close of the fiscal year. And then lastly, on page 8, this is our revenue and expense inception to date. The purpose of this report is to capture for you all of the sources and expenditures for both Phase 1 and Phase 2 from the beginning. The incidental and construction costs have been paid by JSCB, are represented by both categories, Phase 1 and Phase 2 for inception to date. This only reflects the activity through the end of April, so although certain items have been discussed but not paid yet, they're not reflected. Sources, inception to date of $144.2 million for Phase 1 and $202 million for Phase 2. Expenditures for Phase 1 are $141.6 and $57 for Phase 2. Any questions?
Questions from the board? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thank
Cecilia.
you.
Thank you.
Yes, we have several payment resolutions this morning, beginning with resolution number 31, which would be the monthly payment for Landon and Ryan.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Resolution number 32 would be the monthly payment to Turner Construction Company.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried.
And resolution 33 is the payment to the various Tranche 1 contractors.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, resolution number 34 are the payments for the various Tranche 2 contractors.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Any other discussion for today?
I just have just a question. On the letter that we received with notification, was that, and I just kind of scanned it, that was related to the Ed Smith work?
Yes, my email was to update you on the legal status of that project and the efforts we're making. I can't go into any more detail in a public meeting, but
Yep.
I'd be glad to talk to you after the meeting, or we can have an executive session maybe next month.
In the July. Okay. All right. I just wanted.
Sure, no, glad to clarify that for you. Yep.
Any other discussions? Hearing none, thank you, Greg, for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Do we have to a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.